Hello again. So today we're gonna talk about something very basic, shifting curves. Yeah. So let's see. What we have here is a shifting demand curve. Now people generally get confused with what shifts mean, because if shifts are non-linear, let's say something like this and this and this, and then people get confused, okay, what is happening from here to here, and then what is happening from here to here. And in economics you see a lot of these shifts essentially. Yeah. And well, shifts are really simple, probably the simplest of things. I also wanted to talk about a little bit about how you can read these graphs, because students who are in the early stages of economics, they kind of get frightened, especially those who are not mathematically inclined. They get frightened with graphs and all, and they feel, in my classes several people have asked me, several students ask me, oh, is it okay if I don't draw graphs or anything, or are there going to be mathematical problems, something like that. But frankly speaking, you don't really need to worry about those things, because they're exceedingly simple, and it's better to rely on graphs rather than relying on purely on your verbal explanation. Because as you're writing the answer, or as you're imagining an economics concept, you are you're better off if you're thinking in terms of graphs and pictures as compared to the definitions, because human mind has the ability to visualize better as compared to remember textual, verbal uh, definitions. So anyway, let's see. I mean, let's look at this graph first. Y-axis or vertical axis represents price of novels. Here we are looking at a simple demand curve. Okay, and this is something that we have already discussed in previous lectures. So, and on the x-axis we have, or horizontal axis, we have quantity of novels purchased. So generally on x and y axis, the convention is that this is representative of price, and this is the representative of quantity, either demanded or supplied, depending on what we are talking about. So here we are talking about quantity demanded. So here we have, let's say, the first curve. Okay, forget about these two right now, don't worry about these two. Let's say we have this one, the maroon one. Okay, so what's going on? If someone asks, okay, what is this point? Well, this point is, it seems like all you have to do is look at the horizontal axis, which is this one. Alright, so it seems like it's somewhere between 5 to 10. We can say maybe it's 6.5 or something like that. Okay, 5, 6, 6.5, and this is what, 9. So this would be, in terms of xy, right, in terms of xy, what would it be called? It would be called 6.5 comma 9, right? Because it's basically telling you the location. I mean, we are all so used to looking at something like Google Maps. So it gives you a location. How does it give you a location? It locates a particular location based on latitude and longitude, which is nothing but a coordinate. Okay, and this is exactly what it is. This is a coordinate. This is telling you the location of a point in a two-dimensional space. It's called as a Cartesian coordinate. Okay, Cartesian. Forgive my handwriting, by the way. I have said this already, but I'm gonna buy a better digital pen. So let's see, it's gonna arrive next week, so maybe it's better, but okay, anyway, hope for the best. So this is Cartesian coordinate because it was basically popularized by this French philosopher called Descartes. And now at this point, a lot of people are gonna say, well, this is too basic. We don't want to hear about it. Well, if you don't, then you can skip this lecture, but this is a very basic lecture, like I said in the beginning. So, well, what do we have is, first, how do we read coordinates? This is how we read coordinates. And generally there is another thing called as how to find slope of something. Well, slope of something is nothing but the rise over run, meaning if I say from this point to this point, what is the slope of the line? Well, I know one thing for sure, and this is something that I have discussed in previous lectures also, that if it is sloping in this direction, then it's a negative slope, because as this quantity increases, this quantity actually decreases. Okay, that's what's happening. Or if this quantity increases, then this quantity decreases. So it's a negative slope. Correct. Anyway, negative, all it means is that they are in a negative relationship. One thing increases, another thing decreases. Here, if the price increases of something, the quantity demanded of that something is going to decrease, because the price has increased. Nobody wants to spend more money. So let's say between price, when price is 8, which you can see, y coordinate, and the quantity sold is 10, which is x coordinate. Now in this case, if somebody asks you what is the slope between this point and this point, alright, or this point and this point, you can take any point, by the way. Okay, so this point and this point, let's take this point. Okay, so what is this? This is 10, 8, and this is what? 13, 7. This point is 13, 14, 7. So from 10, 8 and 14, 7, what is the slope? So what is the change? What is the change from here to here? From here to here in x. Okay, the change is 10, 14, so change is 4 plus 4. From this to this, what is the change? From 8 to 7 minus 1. And generally, when we think of slope, we think of it in terms of y2 minus y1 upon x2 minus x1. So we know the y2 minus y1, we know that the difference between this and this is minus 1. So this is minus 1. And this x2 and x1 is, it's getting hodgepodge, let me change the color. x2 minus x1 is plus 4 divided by 4. So the slope is minus 1 by 4. You can even forget about the minus sign for now. Okay, don't worry about this. But in absolute terms, alright, in absolute terms, the slope is what? 1 by 4. Which means 0.25. That's the slope. Okay. Now you got it. So this, however, one thing you need to remember is this is a linear curve. This is a line. So it's called as a linear curve. So one thing you need to remember is if the line is something like this, then we'll need something else to find the slope. Okay, generally we use calculus, okay, differentiation, to find the slope of such a curve. But right now we don't have to worry about calculus because these are lines. This is a linear curve. Now what the hell is going on here? There are three curves. What's going on? Well, the main reason of making this video is that we need to talk about shifts, which are quite frequent in economics literature. So what is happening here is, if you look at these points, and of course I'm using somebody else's diagram, I haven't made it, I've just borrowed it from a textbook. I generally borrow these things from the internet just to reduce my workload. I'm more interested in explaining it. Okay, so what is this? This is a point, and this is a point. This is a demand curve, clearly states here. Now here it says that demand curve is essentially going in this direction, okay, in a direction, rightward direction, but what exactly is happening is not clear to a lot of people. If it is clear to you, then it's great. So here they have said that as the income increases, the demand curve actually shifts rightwards. Alright. My point is that there might be hundreds of reasons why demand curve is actually shifting rightwards. For example, price of novels and quantity of novels purchased. Now I may say something like something that cannot be quantified. Okay, I may say maybe there's some other reason. Maybe there is like an education drive in the nation where people are promoting reading. Okay, you should read more. That never really happens in real world. Politicians would never like you to read more. They would like you to read less and listen to their nonsense more. But let's say there is some kind of education drive in this scenario, then even when the incomes haven't really increased, the quantity demanded for novels have increased. Now here, when we say that because of some other XYZ factor other than the price, the demand increases, only then we say demand increases. Generally, when we go from this point to this point, we say, oh, quantity demanded, or this point to this point, quantity demanded has increased or decreased. Yeah, but when we say the demand curve shifts, or when we say the demand increases, then essentially we are talking about the shift in the demand curve, and that is why this understanding is very, very important. So even those who think that this is sort of redundant, this is way too easy for us to understand, okay, maybe mathematically it is easier for you to understand, but the rationality behind it is a bit more abstract and a bit more complex, because here there is a subtle difference. There is a very very thin line between what do you mean by quantity demanded has increased and the demand has increased. And when we say demand has increased, that essentially means that the demand curve has shifted towards the right. What could be the reasons of increase in demand or the demand curve shifting towards the right? The reasons could be many. We don't know. Here we are saying, here the example states that the income has increased. Earlier it was 20,000, 30,000, we'll talk about that. But it's saying income has increased, so as the income of people increases, they demand certain commodities more in number. So it's also called as income effect. Okay, it's called as income effect. Like I said, I'm gonna get a better mouse next week. So it's called as income effect. I'll be able to write much better, I hope so. So it sucks writing with a mouse. So income effect essentially means that if the income of people increases, they'll be demanding the same commodity at the same price, more in number or more in quantity. That makes sense? Let's say you buy 3 shirts in a month. I don't buy 3 shirts in a month, but let's say you buy 3 shirts in a month. Alright, then if let's say you are earning something XYZ amount, let's say you're earning 50,000 rupees a month, you buy 3 shirts a month, your income increases to 75,000 a month, if you're that lucky. And then you start buying what? 3 shirts a month? No, maybe you'll buy 4, maybe you'll buy 5, maybe you really like shirts but you didn't have the budget, so you'll buy maybe 9. Depends on each individual. But when you're talking about the aggregate market, when you're talking about the market in totality, the tendency of buying a particular commodity increases as your income increases. You getting it? It's simple. The tendency of buying any commodity increases. Maybe you don't buy shirts, maybe you buy something else, but maybe your neighbor buys more shirts. So in totality, as a sum total, any commodity will be bought more if the income of that person has increased. But that doesn't mean that's the only factor that is going to be responsible for increase in consumption. When people are more academically inclined, let's say there is the same example that we were taking, that people, let's say they get more academically inclined because they've seen a movie which celebrates academic achievement, something like A Beautiful Mind, that Russell Crowe movie. That sort of, it gives people a feeling that, oh, they should read more, or they saw a Jane Austen movie, or they saw something. I mean, I'm just giving you an example. But that could also be another reason. There could be a reason where you're supposed to, the literature is introduced in every single course, whether you're doing engineering or you're doing, medical science, or you're doing social science, doesn't matter. You have to pass at least one literature course. Even in that case, the quantity of novels purchased will increase. So there could be hundreds of different factors. Maybe the political climate in the nation is such that it requires people, or people find it necessary to actually read more literature. Maybe it's not the price of novels, we can just say the price of books in general. Okay, so the idea is that there could be other factors which gives rise to the increase in the general demand of goods and services. Okay, any good and service, doesn't matter, a general rise in goods and service, and that is exactly what we call as the shift in the demand curve. Now the exact same thing is applicable for the supply curve also, and we'll discuss that later on, but the idea remains exactly the same. So let's see what it is. What do we mean? And by now I'm pretty sure it's clear to you, but still, this is the price at which 10 quantity was bought. Okay, here the price is here. If for some reason, and here it says the income has increased, but we can imagine any particular reason. I mean, it could be any reason. Okay, but let's say, for the sake of argument, income has increased. At the same price, at the exact same price, more will be bought. Okay, the price hasn't changed, more is being bought. If the income increases further, from 20 it becomes 30, from 30 it becomes 40, then the demand curve will shift rightwards even further, and at the same price even more will be bought. 16 will be bought. So what is happening is, essentially, if there is a parallel shift, and this is what is called as parallel shift. If there is a parallel shift in the demand, that means some factor is responsible for a higher quantity demanded at the same price. Exactly. A higher quantity demanded at the same price. There is nothing more to it. It doesn't matter if curves are shaped like this. Okay, they're shaped like this, or they're shaped like something else. It does not matter. Okay, it's going from here to here, it's going, as long as there is a parallel shift, all it's doing is either at the same price the quantity demanded is more and more, or in the case of supply something else happens. Let me clear that out. In case of supply, let's say something else will happen. If this is the supply curve, we know that it's positively sloping. The supply curve is something like this, and this is a non-linear one, but still this non-linear is assumed that it's parallel to each other. No credit to my drawing, but I'm telling you already. So what is happening is, if let's say we say something like this has happened, and now the supply curve has shifted rightwards, that essentially means that at this price more is actually supplied. Okay, instead of quantity demanded, we have quantity supplied. Alright, so what could be the reason? Well, the reason could be several, maybe. So let's see what is happening. More is supplied, right, at the same price. That means what? More sellers are out there in the market to supply the bigger quantity. That means there must have been some kind of technological change which enabled those suppliers who weren't willing to supply before, but now they're willing to supply in the market, because the commodity, they can manufacture commodity at cheaper prices. So if they can manufacture the commodity at cheaper prices, more and more suppliers will be interested to supply that commodity in the market. So that's the idea behind shifts. So let me reiterate, shifts are nothing but they merely show how the quantity bought in case of demand curve or sold in case of supply curve increases without the increase in price. Right? So we'll keep on discussing about these things more and more, but I just wanted to give this introductory lecture about shifts, and also a little bit about what do you mean by slope. So graphs are really simple to understand. If you understand through graphs, things will be easier for you. Maybe in the beginning, especially those who find graphs difficult or any mathematical explanation difficult, especially those initially, it may be difficult, but I mean, if you bear with it, it becomes simpler and simpler over a period of time. Those who are mathematically gifted, yeah, there's no problem. They can skip this lecture. Okay, so next time what we're going to do is we're going to get a bit deeper in demand and supply analysis, and how utility is associated with demand and supply, how cost plays a role in supply, and income plays a role in demand, and utility plays a role in demand. So we're gonna get into that. So that's it for now. Thank you.